Good afternoon. Welcome to the 5,286th meeting of the Rotary Club of Tulsa, Club 2500, District 6110. Got another, man, this is a good looking, did you guys notice how the room just filled up here in about the fast 3 or 4 minutes? I don't know, that was quick. We've got a great program today. We've got a great speaker for you. Before we start, we're going to have an invocation and pledge from Ashley Cutshaw, and then her dad is going to do our guest introductions.
I was actually roped into doing both, so I got Dad to do one of them for me. So, all right, let us pray. Gracious God, thank you for bringing us together today in fellowship and service. As we go about our work, remind us that strong communities are built through care, dignity, and helping one another meet basic needs. Open our eyes to where we are called to serve, our hands to do meaningful work, and our hearts to lead with compassion and humility. May we always remember that lasting impact comes not from what we accumulate, but from what we give. Guide our time together today and inspire us to live out service above self. Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Good afternoon. We've got people that we need to welcome, and at the end, if you'll give them applause, and I'd like for whoever's introduced as guest today to stand with their host and just keep standing until we announce everybody that's a guest at the Rotary Club of Tulsa today. Tim Cargile is a guest of Dylan Trutsu, and also Sarah Chrisman is also a guest of Dylan. Thank you. We have Ryan Nolan is a guest of Jenny Hammock. Ryan Nolan, okay. And Becca Rowland is a guest of Taylor Gillard. Bruce Griffin is a guest of Chuck Wilson, right there in the front row. And Crystal Dollarhide is here with her husband, Jake Dollarhide. Welcome. And Kent Powers is the guest of Jeff Johnson. And we also have two prospective members. Gary Bartlett is a guest of Andrea Nelson Bartlett, and Brandon Haig is a guest of Barney James. So welcome, everybody.
Was anybody else glad to see Jeff Johnson here today? Jeff Johnson was a big encouragement to me in my involvement in the Rotary Club of Tulsa. He's a longtime member, and I think sometimes he gets so busy counting money he can't make it to the meetings. But Jeff, we're glad to see you today. We appreciate your continued membership in our club. Anybody listen to the piano music today? John did a great job, but we got Habitat for Humanity here to talk about housing and homes, and we heard Home on the Range and everything he could find from the penthouse suite, Home on the Range to House of the Rising Sun. We went from the penthouse to the whorehouse, courtesy of Mr. John Hamill today. One of the great things, I got a little Rotary DNA. But before I do the Rotary DNA, did any of you guys have the opportunity to do the recommended optional mandatory required upgrade to Windows 11 recently? Did any of you want to borrow a hammer and use it as your computer repair device? Got to do that, thought I was going to go nuts. One of the great things about Tulsa Rotary from the very earliest days of our club is that the fellowship and community service has always gone hand in hand with laughter. The meetings every week were not just about service and business, they were also about camaraderie and good humor. For decades, that spirit was led by a group known as the Stunts Committee. Now, I did not have the pleasure of being a part of the club while the Stunts Committee was in action, but they did a lot of great stuff. How many remember the Stunts Committee? That's great. I'm going to need to talk to you guys some more later to learn more about that. But they had one job. Their job was simple. It was to make Rotarians laugh. And their antics added levity to our luncheons and created memories that are still talked about today. Some of those stunts included short skits, occasionally featured politically incorrect male Rotarians in the men-only club dressing in drag and appearing in these skits. I called Bob Sade on the way here today and said, "Bob, were you one of the transvestites in our club?" And apparently he said no, but it took him a minute to figure out his answer, so I'm not sure I believe him. And there was also an annual roast of the outgoing president. We've not done that in quite a while. I'm pleased to report we're going to start that again in Karen McCannell's year. Karen, just want to make sure you know they're not going to do it to me, they're going to do it to you. In 1973, club president Allen Edwards, how many of you know we have an Allen Edwards Society in this club? He was a great president. And he and Sergeant at Arms, remember we talked about Lynn Wellborn? He was the Sergeant at Arms that lost one arm in his Rotary tenure and became the Sergeant at Arms. He and Allen Edwards teamed up for a stunt involving a live chicken that they brought to the club meeting. And my understanding was that chicken may have gotten loose at some point, which certainly added some levity. How many of you know the name Warren Holtgren? Dr. Warren Holtgren, I believe he was the longtime pastor at, was it First Baptist Church, Chuck, here in Tulsa? A Baptist minister, you know the old joke. The best way to keep a Baptist from drinking all of your beer on a fishing trip is to bring another Baptist. Well, in 1976, Warren Holtgren, the Baptist minister, was president of our club, and he had a good sense of humor. And at some point during the meeting that this was done, someone produced an empty whiskey bottle and presented it to Mr. Holtgren, and without missing a beat, he held the bottle up and said, "I'll drink to that." The tradition of that committee carried on for years. In June of 1983, outgoing President Pete Wingett was famously roasted while seated in a sultan's chair up on the stage. And a team of 4 individuals carried him into the room on that sultan's chair. You can see it there. Mike Murray, Jack Oakley, and our own old man time, Bob Sade, was one of the guys who carried him in. A lot of members still remember that. I'll not be sitting in a sultan's chair at any time in the near future. Now, Pete Wingett was a 40-year member of this club, and he sang in the Rotary Men of Note. He was quite a guy. His participation in this club, Rotary Men of Note, and some other Rotary things were featured in his obituary some years ago after he passed away. Many Rotarians will recall some clever skits performed by a guy named Lee Gideon and George Rutan. How many remember Lee Gideon? Yeah, Lee Gideon. George would ask Lee Gideon leading questions, and Lee would come back with perfectly timed responses. Now, you may remember Lee from Beyond Rotary. Lee was a character known as Modell Phipps on John Erling's KRMG show and in Don Carlton Honda television and radio ads. And he was a cranky 98-year-old neighborhood watch leader with a pet spider monkey named Everett. He was a neighborhood watch character, and his favorite enforcement weapon for the neighborhood watch was a flame thrower. I took a moment. You can go to SoundCloud and you can hear some of these clips. If you look up Modell Phipps, you can hear some of the clips of these ads of Lee Gideon acting as Modell Phipps, and they are absolutely hilarious. He talks about his stepsister Inez, and talks about he was coming from his 60th wedding anniversary on the way home, and his wife kissed him on the mouth, and he said, "I've never been so disgusted in my life." So those kind of moments, and moments like these, remind us that while Rotary is a serious endeavor for service, it's always made room for joy and laughter and friendship, and that lighthearted spirit remains an important part of who we are still today. Phil Ashley, I don't know, you might be a fitting member of the Stunts Committee. I don't know, we may name you chairperson of that, see if you can reconstitute it. At this time, we've got our Sergeant at Arms, plural, Shanna Vollmer, coming to talk to us.
Thank you, Carl. Yes, I was very intrigued with this stunt committee. When I met and interviewed Linda Bradshaw, I heard a lot of stories, but I cut a lot of that material out, afraid to air it, but it was some great stories. We have some celebrations today, starting off with happy birthday, Don Woosley. Don, are you here? Oh, darn it. All right, happy 95th birthday to Don. January 6th, he donated $95 to the donation. Let's give him a hand. We also have another birthday. Happy birthday, John Croissant and his twin sister. John, I did not know you had a twin. There's two of you out there. Frightening. January 10th, $100, $49 for each birthday, and $2 to wish every Rotarian a great 2026. So, John, are you here? There he is. Happy birthday, John. Also, Scott Philstrip, are you here, Scott? I didn't see you walk in. He donated $500 to the foundation to recognize Jack Maxwell with MSNI. He recently saw Jack at a concert and was singing along to the words, and just wanted to recognize a fabulous, amazing Rotarian. So thank you, Scott Philstrip. Let's give them both a hand. And then Andrea, are you in the room? I believe I heard your name earlier. Andrea, there you go. Andrea made a donation on behalf of Carl Vincent. Just the fact that he is a fabulous Rotarian president, we all agree, and the various dearest of family friends. So Carl, recognizing you with a great donation of $1,000. Andrea, thank you so much for such a kind donation. And I put this one up here. Is Richard in the room? Richard Holmes? Okay, there you are, Richard. So Tommy Lynn sent me an email and suggested this is a great opportunity for a fine. It was forwarded by Bill Vogel, so we need to chat. I think a fine's due for this great article on the Heart of Route 66 Museum. So he's putting up his wallet. Love it. Thanks, Tommy Lynn. And last year, I'm so excited. He keeps dodging me, but he can't for very long. I will be interviewing Bob Sade. We're going to have a lot of fun. I promised him that. So that's upcoming member spotlight will be in February. And Karen, I know I owe you an email because I know you had someone in mind. So looking forward to that. So thank you very much.
Andrea, that's very gracious. Thank you. That means a lot to me. Here I am up in front of you guys again, and I get to introduce another really remarkable Rotarian of the day. This is a guy that was a serial performer for us on introductions and pledge earlier this year, and I did not realize the depth of his skill. He serves as the Vice President of Development with Green Country Habitat for Humanity, where he leads their development efforts, including fundraising, event management, and donor relations. He's a Tulsa native. He has a diverse background from his experience in nonprofit fundraising, sales, professional sports, event management, and marketing. Diverse is a good way to describe that. Rob has played an integral role in several transformational civic projects, including the Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits $10.5 million capital campaign. Case Anderson's in the room here somewhere, I know. Case, do you know, I don't think we have a sponsorship chair for the Rotary Club of Tulsa for this year. Do you think maybe there's somebody let's explore that. If nothing else, maybe he can mentor somebody for that sponsorship chair to help us a little bit. He also handled the Tulsa Drillers' 2010 move from 15th and Yale to One Oak Field in downtown Tulsa. And by handling that move, I don't think that means he packed up stadium seats and bolted them down in the new stands. I think he raised a little money there. And he led the fundraising efforts for the USA BMX headquarters in the historic Greenwood district of Tulsa. Rob earned his undergraduate degree from Trinity University in San Antonio, Texas, and went on to obtain his MBA in marketing management from the University of Dallas in Irving, Texas. Rob and his wife, Carrie, an undoubtedly long-suffering woman, returned to Tulsa in 2008, where they raised their two daughters, Emily and Ainsley. Please welcome our Rotarian of the day, Rob Gardenhire.
Guilty as charged, and if you know my wife, definitely long-suffering. Well, it's our pleasure to be here today. I say ours because I'm introducing my boss. So in light of my year-end review and the fact that I think my 20-year-old is buying Bruno Mars tickets for September, Cameron, I'm going to need a day off later on, so I'm only going to throw one joke in. But it's my pleasure to introduce our CEO at Green Country Habitat for Humanity, Cameron Walker. So Cameron grew up in Stillwater, Oklahoma, attended OSU, and despite of those setbacks in his early years, there it is. And I have a daughter at OSU, just to be clear. But Cameron met his wife there, and they've raised a beautiful family here in Tulsa. And when Cameron took over Habitat for Humanity in 2015, we built one house. And in the last 2 years, we've built almost 130 houses. We have plans to build 130 or 100 plus this year. So Cameron has really transformed our organization, has expanded our restore impact, going from one store to as many as 5. Right now we have 4. And I'm not going to read his wonderful bio here, but again, my great pleasure to bring Cameron to the stage to learn more about Habitat for Humanity.
Thank you so much. It's only because of that illustrious fundraising background that Carl read about Rob that I could overlook the whole Sooner thing. So it's really great to see so many friendly faces. We've got former board members in here, we've got volunteers, former colleagues. I have been assured that if Paul Baumann gets disruptive, he will be removed. I joke with Paul, so by the time this is done, whether you like me or you dislike me, Paul is responsible. He actually hired me. He was the chair of the board, so you can blame him. I'm really excited to visit with this audience. You've really had to have your head in the ground the last few years not to have heard about the affordable housing crisis. Today, we're going to talk about owner-occupied housing. When you hear affordable housing, that means a litany of different things to different people. There's a real big focus on the unhoused, permanent supportive housing. We're on up the food chain. All of these pieces are interlinked. They're very important. If we have a breakdown kind of with the income level of families we work with, the problem is it creates downward pressure on kind of those that are working in the rental space. So it's really important that we buttress owner occupied opportunities for hardworking families. And to that end, there's a lot of misconceptions about what Habitat does. First part of this, I'm going to get into some, kind of just frame this with some data. Some of this we pulled recently. It was kind of eye-opening even to me. But it'll kind of paint the picture of maybe if you haven't purchased a home in a while, or you have owned your home for many years, what the challenge is today for younger people that are coming out of college, starting their career, what the hill really looks like. And then on the back half, we'll kind of talk about how we actually approach work here in Tulsa and in Green Country. And I can assure you, it is light years different than most every other habitat in the country. So when you talk to our peers around the country, people are either very envious or they think we are the devil incarnate because we have uprooted some sacred cows. But with that being said, I'll jump right in. So just to kind of set the stage here, so why is affordable housing and home ownership in particular so important? Well, for most American families, it is their largest asset. It is the single largest way that most American families build wealth. Median homeowners have 38 times the wealth of the average renter. So why is that important? When we approach housing, of course, it's from a vantage point of shelter. We want to give people energy efficient, well-built homes that are going to appreciate. And that appreciate piece kind of comes into the wealth building component. We really look at this as how can we help these families build wealth that not only will help them today, but will be something that can be passed down generationally. So when you don't own a home, or when you don't have the ability to invest, build a 401k, things like that, the fallout's kind of pretty easy to kind of follow. So if you have no equity in a home, you have no collateral to go out and get a loan most times. You see a high incidence of predatory lenders in some of our disadvantaged communities, and that's by design. Those are the families that are most at risk. They are the most cut out of our banking and economic system, and they are the most vulnerable to be exploited. If you have no collateral, you have no access to capital, and then of course you have no ability to pass down generational wealth. So we really look at housing from a lens of wealth building, and so that's somewhat different than a lot of our peers in the Habitat Network, but it's very important to how we approach building these homes and actually how we end up financing these homes for these families. These were kind of eye-opening statistics. So last year, the median age of a home buyer in the United States was 59 years old. I was a little shocked by that. For first-time home buyers, I actually did this backwards, so we'll start at the bottom. So in 2025, last year, for a first-time home buyer, it was 40 years old. In 2021, it was 33 years old, and then back in 1981, it was 29 years old. So why is that an issue? Why is that important? That investment, that time that you are losing where you're cut out, that is years that you are not building equity, that you do not have that kind of compounding effect of your household wealth. So the longer that families are having to wait to purchase homes, the longer their starting point is moving farther and farther out in front of them to actually begin that journey to build household wealth. So this is unfortunately a troubling trend, and some of the next slides will kind of get into why this is happening. But this is something that policymakers, both at the federal, state level, we've got to address this because, and I think he spoke recently at one of your luncheons. Steve Wyatt is one of our board members with Bank of Oklahoma, and he talks a lot in his weekly kind of market assessments about this growing K-shaped economy, where people that are on the higher end, that own assets, that have money invested, we're doing great right now. things are great. You know, I don't have any problem going out and purchasing a vehicle. I don't have any problem putting my kids in college. But for everyone else, they're going in the wrong direction. Inflation, price increases, housing, all of these things are crippling these families. And quite honestly, that is the biggest portion of our workforce. So again, I'm not here to solve that, but just want to point that out through some data points. So this, the orange lines, that is kind of the trending median household incomes. And the blue bars are the median sales prices of homes and values of homes. So I am not a math or a data guy, but this one isn't hard to interpret. So we have really, in particular since COVID, have seen almost here locally a doubling in the cost of both construction and the price point and valuation of homes. So families that were struggling when we were building $125,000 homes, today when we're building $205,000, $215,000 homes, and these are starter homes, it is becoming extremely difficult to work with many families, particularly families and households that have a single income. So hope that is kind of eye-opening, but that, again, interest rates, you know, we hear about those, you know, getting a little bit of relief. But when I bought my first house, I think in 2001, I think I had about a 6.5, 6.75. My new house was $104,000. You know, if today I was kind of relative to those incomes, my wife and I would be renting, just based on some of the data that's available today. All right. So there was a time, and probably not too far in my distant past, where I thought like $100,000 household income, you kind of made it. This kind of displays, so in 2019, $100,000 household income could potentially purchase up to 65% of the homes that were listed for sale on the market. By 2025, that dropped down to 37%. Now let's take a step down. $75,000 households. It was 49% of all listings they were available they could afford and purchase in 2019. That dropped by half to 21% by 2025. Now where it gets really meaningful for our work is the next tier, $50,000, a household income. And that may not seem like a lot, but a starting salary right now for a Tulsa public school teacher is in the mid-40s. And we work with a lot of single mothers that have 1 or 2 children that are trying to start and build their career in education. And we see a lot of these families. So at $50,000, in 2019, they could afford about 28% of the listings. Today, we're down to 9. There are no homes that families that are working in that income bracket can afford. So whether I'm setting this up to kind of talk about the importance of agencies like Habitat or not, there is a real meaningful need for a focus on housing, and particularly owner-occupied. It's not enough that we just continue to build rentals, because again, there is a place and there are times in life and there are families and structures where renting may be the choice, you know, for their life for the duration. But for most American families, we've got to figure out how to solve for this problem, or we are going to continue to see a wider and wider divide in that K-shaped economy. So as I kind of alluded to, over the last 5 years, the average household income that we at Green Country Habitat for Humanity have served is $47,000 a year. So when I began in 2015, we were working with people that made $12, $15 an hour. And that's when we had that $95,000 to $125,000 house. Today, we can no longer help those people get into a home affordably. Today, we're working, again, public school teachers. We are working with police officers, launching a new program here this year to help recruit and retain TPD officers, firefighters, people that are working in our hospitals and our doctors' clinics, major manufacturers, major corporations. I won't name names, but I worked with one of the most famous companies here in town for a couple of years trying to convince them to give us money. And it was finally this income table that we provided to their executive team that was kind of eye-opening. And they said, hey, that's the vast majority of our workforce falls in this. So the way you can read this, very simple. So on the far left, you've got the number of people in the household. The green band, that is essentially 60% of the area median income. So in Tulsa County, family of four, the median income is about $89,000. We work with families that make as low as 60% of that or as much as 120% of that. And that really captures what's known as affordable housing and workforce housing. So in the city, well, in the county of Tulsa, that equates to about 67% of all households in Tulsa County. So whether they already own a home, need a home, just based on household income, 67% of all households could theoretically qualify for our program and need assistance to purchase a home. All right, so I'll pivot. So hopefully I've kind of opened your eyes to some of the statistics and some of the challenges that we're seeing every day. So COVID was really kind of an eye-opener for us. It really forced us to make some tough decisions. Most habitats, of which there's over 950 affiliates in the country, for about 2 years kind of shuttered their doors and just rode out the storm. We are very fortunate to be in a city that is extremely generous. We have your Kaisers, your Zeros, your Schustermans, and they had committed many millions of dollars to us to support housing. So there was no shutting the doors and waiting for 2 years. So we had to do something. We couldn't host volunteers because of safety protocols. So what we decided to do in the interim was take a page out of the private sector, and we began building with professional contractors. We love our volunteers, and as we'll talk about here momentarily, we still incorporate hundreds and hundreds of volunteers both weekly and on an annual basis. But we're using them a little different than we did in the past. So today, we don't really use volunteers on the job site out in the field. So if there's a slab building the house, those are the pro contractors. So what we've done is we've taken building a house from 4 to 5 months, and if weather agrees with us, we've reduced that down to about 45 days. So these are professional contractors. So two net effects of this real quick that we began to see. We can put them down quicker, and we can build many more. And so our production kind of hockey sticked. And so as we came out of COVID, people started coming back to work. I think Rob and I, we began sweating, going, okay, what are we going to do when One Oak calls and says they want to build a house? And well, those calls really didn't happen. What we saw and what we were not anticipating was a lot of our biggest employers began to go to a hybrid work office or offering fully remote. And so we actually had big multi-year sponsors that were telling us, hey, we can't commit in the same way we used to, and we kind of breathed a sigh of relief. So today we host about 4 or 5 kind of photo op days. They're wall raising days, where we have corporate partners come out, we raise the walls on the house, but on day 2, the pros come in and finish the house. Now, there is one exception to that. One of your guests today, Mr. Kemp Powers. Can you raise your hand, Mr. Powers? Kemp Powers runs our longest serving volunteer group, the Tuesday Morning Miracle Workers. And I may botch this, but they got their name coming in on Tuesdays because Saturdays was a big day to host volunteers. Well, they got their name because they would come in on Tuesday and essentially fix everything that the volunteers did wrong on Saturday. So they got the name the Tuesday Morning Miracle Workers, and they have carried that tradition on. They are our only volunteer group that, in addition to our contractors, they still build houses from start to finish. And they keep up with the pros. And they are a huge value add to our organization, both on the housing front and both in our cabinet shop, which is really critical to our restore work. So in addition to kind of changing how we've used volunteers, we also changed how we finance these houses and how we actually create a subsidy for the families. So in years gone by, the Habitat model was essentially, if it cost $150,000 to build a house, we had to go raise that money, and then we could build a house. Well, the great thing about banks is they have far more money than we do, so we just started building on a line of credit. And so with professional contractors, we're building them. Now, we have to deal with that interest component because the old Habitat had a 0% interest loan. We were the mortgage bank, and we were servicing these loans. But the problem at 0%, whether you're making $48,000 a year or $30,000 a year as a household, you were getting the same subsidy. So some families were being over-subsidized, while some families were being, subsidized just at the bare minimum. We have gone to a model that uses something called forgivable down payment assistance. So the easiest way, we'll use a round number. So a $200,000 home, a family that comes to us, their income can sustain a $150,000 mortgage. So that $150,000 mortgage actually goes to a bank, but we have to make up that $50,000. So we use both federal, state, private philanthropic dollars, grants, to essentially create something that's akin to a second mortgage that sits over on the side. As long as a family makes all of their payments on time, does not default, no issues for 5 years, at the end of 5 years, that $50,000 is forgiven. And that's an instant equity dump into their home. So we have some families where we were building homes in 2020 and 2021 who at the end of that 5 years, they got that equity dump, but also prices that have risen considerably. And we found on some appraisal reorders that we had families that had over $100,000 in equity in their property. And for a family that's making $47,000 a year, that's transformational. That means braces for children. That means some college help. So it's changed the way we're educating families, or where we're working with families, but it's also increased our capacity. Lastly, our Restore expansion, I'll touch on that just briefly. So who here is familiar with the Restore? All right, thank you. You've helped pay my salary. We have grown from 2015 having 1 Restore to having 4 stores. We cover, and this is kind of unique for a nonprofit, we cover about 65% of our budget with the sales off of our 4 stores. So keep shopping, keep donating. We appreciate your support. It's a very important piece of what we're doing. So the last 4 to 5 years, us working in North Tulsa, this is just kind of a visual of the new real estate we've put down, almost $46 million in new housing, but it took $14 million in down payment assistance to make that happen. So the subsidy and the need is large. Now, these are a list of our banking partners. I will say the only reason these banks work with us is because of something called the Community Reinvestment Act. When a bank reaches a certain size, by law, they are required to lend to low-income borrowers and or into low-income census tracts. The chief problem is that most banks are not located anywhere near these communities. So we act as a bridge. And so that's the big value add. They agree to lend to our clients at a below market rate. So they're not making a lot of money, but we're keeping the regulators off their back. So we appreciate all of these banking partners, because without them, this model blows up. This real quick, this is just kind of a visual. So we were founded in 1988. Between 1988 and 2019, we built 406 homes, and in the last 5 years, we've built almost 250 homes. So the change has been meaningful, and we hope to continue kind of growing at that pace as well. This is where we've been building. It's predominantly been north of 244, between roughly about Yale Avenue and the LL Tisdale. So North Tulsa. If you know Counselor Vanessa Hall Harper, this almost aligns with District 1, gets into former Counselor Patrick's old district. We are now migrating into East Tulsa, And then this past year, we actually finished 10 new homes in the city of Wagner. So we're kind of reaching out into some of our rural communities as well. On the single-family side, I'm going to go through this pretty quick just to kind of give you a visual. There's a lot of knocks that sometimes that we build kind of an atypical home, something that's not going to carry value. These are pretty indicative of a lot of the single-family homes that we build. I was speaking with Aaron Went before the meeting. These are the homes that are up there by the Gilcrease Police Command Center in North Tulsa. This was a development called Peace Point. Townhomes, we're trying to utilize land. In addition to everything else, the cost of land has jumped considerably. So we're trying to do things that create density, better usage of property. The other thing, over the last year, 75% of our clients were single mothers. So there becomes safety and security in numbers and eyeballs. The beauty of these developments, too, is they're all owner HOA governed. We maintain a seat, but now we've got resident investment in these. Also, I don't want to be the guy in 20 years that's remembered for building that such and such development somewhere that's not being maintained. So these HOAs are going to be critical to keeping these properties looking nice over time. One that's actually, they're digging footings and pouring them today, Black Wall Street Square. You may have heard this. This is up on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and East Reading Street. We are really excited about this. We partnered with a market rate African-American developer named Terry McGee on this project. This will have true market rate units that are sold on the open market to clients. They're slightly bigger, finished out differently. A total of 25 units, but then there'll also be the interior units, 17, that will be our families. The beauty of this, when you drive by, you're not going to tell from door to door who's who. So it's truly a true mixed income community, which in my world is kind of the secret sauce. We don't ever want to create pockets of poverty. We want to create pockets of mixed income. Owner-occupied remodels, particularly in North Tulsa, the average age of an owner tends to trend a little older than the rest of the city of Tulsa. So many of these families, they bought this home, they raised their children, now they're retired, and most are on, or a lot are on a fixed income and don't have the means to do remodeling. So through some grants that we received, we went through and did 50 exterior remodels throughout North Tulsa on owner-occupied homes. So we were able to put on new roofs, new siding, new windows, essentially weatherize these homes, bring up the curb appeal. It does no good when we build 2 or 3 brand new homes on a block and everything else is run down. We need essentially kind of that all ships rising with the tide. So this is part of that effort. We've got subdivisions. I'm going to get through this. In North Tulsa, East Tulsa, we're partnering with a large private developer called Capital Homes in North Tulsa on a 77-home neighborhood. This is one you won't even know Habitat's involved with. 18 of these homes are for our clients, but nothing publicly will be presented about us. We're trying to find pathways to get families that are lower down on the economic ladder into some of these opportunities in these master planned HOA governed neighborhoods. And all of the data that we have ever seen on poverty clearly displays that when families lower on the socioeconomic ladder live in close proximity to families that are higher on the ladder, they inevitably in the next generation tend to rise up that socioeconomic ladder. And then lastly, you're getting a sneak peek. We haven't publicly announced this. This is a 20-acre development. This is either going to be my swan song or I'm going to be run out of town. This is what's called a pocket community. If you're familiar with Carlton Landing or the Wheeler District in downtown Oklahoma City, this is going to be an affordable workforce version of that. And what I mean, it's a very dense community with both rental, owner-occupied units, different, all the way from cottages up to large 2,500 square foot single family houses. It will have commercial, medical, 2 large public parks. It is going to be a very exciting project. We are 2 years into this, negotiating on the new Crutchfield TIF. We have development partners with the Cherokee Nation. One of our most well-respected entrepreneurs, Elliot Nelson, is participating in this, and a lot of others. So I just tease that out there. There's some big things coming, but with that, get involved. There's many ways. You can actually volunteer. If you still want to swing a hammer, come out and help us in our wall shop. About 10 to 15 volunteers in the course of 4 to 6 hours can build essentially every wall for a new home. We stack them and bundle them, and when the slab is ready, we drop ship them. It saves us a full day on framing. You can sponsor a home. Rob is always happy to talk with you about that. You can volunteer in our restores, join our monthly giving society. We have everybody $5 to $100 a month. Every dollar is meaningful to our work because it is so expensive to do the work of housing. So with that, questions and answers. I am happy to field your questions. Yes, sir.
I've made some donations to Habitat and some materials and things that we will be doing on our own. And I know that goes to your restores. What do you generally take and what do you not take?
So most of it is, so the question was, what do we generally take and what do we generally not take in our restores as far as donations? So anything that's a hazardous chemical, so a half-used can of paint, unfortunately, there are health codes with some plumbing, like old, commodes we can't take, mattresses, anything that essentially may have been long-term contaminated or could be a hazardous product. We can't take those. But I will say this, we have both our home goods, kind of the original restore that does all the building supplies, furnitures, appliance, rugs, but we also have a thrift store that's a traditional thrift store at 11th and Memorial, and that's more of a clothing and small household goods. So we will essentially take everything, but on our website there's a list up at the Restore tab, greencountryhabitat.org. When you go to donate, they go into detail about all of the things that are permissible. And our folks on our trucks, unfortunately, they have to be the bearer of bad news sometimes. So we are not a trash haul away service. We are trying to take things that can have a second life and find a new home somewhere else and help fund our mission. Yes?
Thank you for helping Tulsa teachers. I know as a board member, that's a big program that helps attract teachers to Tulsa, so thank you for that. Are there any federal programs that you utilize that we could increase to help our community be able to build more homes in places like North Tulsa, East Tulsa, and West Tulsa?
So since you are a candidate for state government, I will tell you this, we are the only habitat in the country that is a member of something called the Housing Partnership Network, HPN. I have now gone to one of their national meetings. We, as Oklahomans, benefited, I think, from relatively affordable housing for very long. But COVID threw that out the window, and I think we had a severe correction that caught us up with a lot of other states. The challenge is that when we start talking about state funding and how they're leveraging some of the federal funding, there are programs that are 10, 15, 20 years old in other states that we haven't even launched in Oklahoma. So both at the municipal level and the state level, and Mr. Croissant, I'm happy to share more in detail, but there are some other tools and tricks of the trade out there, funding mechanisms that I think would help Oklahoma and Tulsa in particular. Again, we're doing some catch up. I will credit the Ann and Henry Zero Foundation. They have been on the warpath, not only with us, but numerous other organizations over the last few years. The reason we are a member of HPN is because they have invited them. We are the third city in the country behind Detroit and New Orleans to have brick and mortar and people from HPN that are experts on the ground here in Tulsa that will be staffed up. Mercy Housing, the largest affordable housing developer in the country, they are now in Tulsa because of the Ann and Henry Zero Foundation, and I could go on and on. So some new blood, new folks coming to town, but there are other things, and particularly from a state government standpoint, funding that would be very, very interesting to kind of take a look at. Yes, sir.
So where's this last community you were talking about, the commercial and mixed price housing, where's that going to be located?
So it is in the Crutchfield neighborhood, which is essentially just east of downtown Tulsa, outside of the IDL. So if you think of Peoria and Utica, north of 244, this is a site that was a brownfield site. So it was essentially contaminated. ODEQ, Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality, had deemed it not allowable to develop on. So over the years, it had just been commercial, or not even commercial, I'd say industrial. So it was just storage, and it was not used. The previous owner, as well as us, have done a tremendous amount of work remediating the property, and we finally do have a clean bill of health, but it's in the Crutchfield neighborhood. If you're familiar with the Outsiders House Museum, this is about 4 blocks north of that. Yes, sir.
Cameron, I know you have a history of giving back to our community, and I'm just curious, what are your motivators? Why did you take this job with the Habitat?
Paul was a great salesman. No, I can tell you this. When I look back on my life, I started off in sales in the medical and dental industry. I owned an oral and maxillofacial CAT scan center. I never, for a moment, thought I would work in nonprofits. I had no appreciation or knowledge of what went on in disadvantaged communities. But I think at least what kind of drives me, I feel like a lot of those principles that I learned in the for-profit sector, not to be a knock on the nonprofit sector by any means, but I think a lot of times nonprofits approach problems differently. And for me, we are the least nonprofit out there. If it doesn't make sense, we don't do it. So it's been the ability to take some of these kind of for-profit ideas and mentalities and approaches to this work that actually have helped scale and expand the reach and the impact and the number of families that we're serving. And so that has been really rewarding for me. I don't know, you could probably talk to my staff and they would say he's insane, but I've really enjoyed that. It's also the relationships. Once you begin to kind of bridge some of those socioeconomic divides, racial divides, before this, I worked at a nonprofit in North Tulsa called Crossover Community Impact. And one of the big things was we coached youth football. You start to meet parents, you start to build relationships. And once when it gets down to that level and you see that families, irrespective of means, irrespective of education, they generally want the same things that I want for my children and my family. And so that has been a big driver. And then just to see, early on, I think the scale of the issue seemed very overwhelming. Well, over the last 15, 20 years, these problems have become a little more bite-sized. And so you've got more organizations that are jumping in. You've got a lot of funding and focus. I think the Tulsa Race Massacre, the Centennial, has been a huge catalyst for investment in North Tulsa. And so I'm really excited about the future of North Tulsa. I think it's going to be just, an amazing kind of statement piece for the city of Tulsa at some point in the future. So I can feel Carl. So thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Did you see it? Did you see how the Habitat for Humanity organization in this community has been transformed over the past decade? It's transformative. The number of houses they used to do, the number of houses they do now, the number of lives they used to touch, the number of lives they touch now. I would contend to you that that transformation is due to transformational leadership, and that man is sitting right there. I actually had the privilege when Cameron was in the oral and maxillofacial imaging business of helping him do his very first lease on Memorial Drive at 82nd Street in that same center where Barbie's Cookies is now. There's no cookies there at the time, but Cameron was notable in the way he approached things, and I've always had tremendous respect for him. I'm so glad you came here today. I'll mention one other thing. Rob, when is the Rock the House Gala?
Rock the House, May 9th.
May 9th is the Habitat for Humanity Rock the House Gala. I've been to that. It's an awesome event. Cameron actually you don't get in drag, though, like some of our members used to do. No, but he puts on some pretty interesting costumes. It's a great event. You may enjoy going to that. Kent Powers, Tuesday morning miracle workers. I'm so glad you're here today as a guest of my friend Jeff Johnson. You're welcome to be at this club anytime as my guest if Jeff's not available, sir. Tommy Lynn Segrist accosted me and twisted up my tie a little earlier today. For those of you who may not be aware, it's time to pay your dues. Please do that soon. Mr. Kevin Murray is sitting back there. He is our, Knuckles. Murray is there. He'll be accosting you to get any dues that are unpaid. Today, we have a book that's going to be honoring the program for our partners in education, Celia Clinton. The book is Fix It, Familia. Cameron's already honored us by endorsing that book. We got fireside meetings coming up. How many of you have been to a fireside meeting? Fireside meeting is your opportunity to give feedback to our club. It's a great opportunity to hang out with your friends as well and maybe work with Phil Ashley on forming that stunts committee. But we're looking for hosts for the fireside meetings. Good way to connect with fellow Rotarians. And it's a group of 10 or 12. You can host it at your house if you would like. I was thinking maybe you could do it in conjunction with the college football championship or the Super Bowl, but Tina tells me that it needs to be on February 17th, 18th, or 19th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. We need 6 Rotarians to serve as hosts for those. We provide you with the questions, you provide a venue, you provide some light refreshments, and a good time for some members to talk about what we need to do next at our club. If you would, Tina's standing in the back of the room. She'll be with Knuckles Murray, and talk to her about this event. We've got another thing coming up that's important to our club. I didn't realize this till the other day. The SCRY event is coming up. That's South Central Rotary Youth Exchange. We hear about SCRY and we think, oh yeah, Tulsa does some youth exchange. That's good. Tulsa is the linchpin in Rotary Youth Exchange for this entire, it's bigger than our zone. Jerry, isn't it? It's the entire region. It's a big area, and we're the linchpin in that, and have been for years, thanks to Jerry Dillon and Duff Weddle and Alan Whalen. And so this year, SCRY is on January 30th and 31st. That's a Friday. So you pick these kids up in the afternoon on Friday, and then you give them back on Saturday afternoon around 3 o'clock. You're responsible for picking them up, taking them to your house, getting them something to eat, giving them a place to sleep. Now, from what I understand, I have a friend that hosted 10 of these SCRY kids a year or two ago, and I said, you don't have 10 beds in your house. He said, you don't need them. They bring backpacks. They got their own sleeping bags. They're on the floor. They're on the sofa. Some of them go lay out on the patio. They don't care. They're there, and you don't have to stay up all night and talk to them. They will probably stay up all night and talk, but all you have to do is make sure they're rounded up in the car and back to the selected site by 3 o'clock. We have 90 of those students coming. Right now, we've got places for 50. So Jenny Hammett, can you host 40 students at your house on the 30th? You got a back patio, don't you? I've got a barn. Okay, well, that's good. We do need more host families for that, so if you will please help us with that, we would appreciate it. And I think Alan Whalen is the primary contact for that. I don't see, Rachel Richardson's a big part of that too. I don't see her today, but they can help you with that. We've got some outstanding upcoming programs. If you're in the business world, you're going to want to be at these next two meetings. Dimitri Wolfson is speaking. He's with Leap Advisory, and he does a lot of CFO work for different companies. He's got some insights that you may find helpful for your business in the coming year. The one after that is Joey Wignaraja. He's an MIT Harvard guy. He served in the military at Guantanamo Bay. He knows a little bit about tough. He's a guy that is in, so this is tech speak that I don't particularly understand. He's in B2B SaaS programming. He does private equity, venture capital, and if you have a business concept that can be translated into software or an app, he helps you do that. He's very effective at it. He'll be speaking to us on the 28th. And then we all know Jack Frank. I'm hoping he previews one of his new videos for us on Tulsa history, but whatever he does will be excellent. We have one committee meeting today, membership engagement in room 231 with Ben Jones. Is that right? There we go. So please attend that if you're a part. We want to thank our Rotary sponsors and whoever's going to be mentored by Rob Gardenhire to be our new sponsorship chair. We will recognize them. Your advertising dollars as a sponsor do help our club to grow, thrive, and encourage people to participate. Thank you for being, yes, sir. Where did he come to us from, Chase? Russia. Okay. We haven't heard any Russians yet this year. So I hope you can come and hear that. And as now we stand adjourned.